Hey everyone, Mr. Wineland here. This is the chapter three presentation. Now this one goes with chapter two. I combined chapter two and three study guides. Now you will need to make sure that that on your packet that you kind of get past chapter two and then you go to chapter three. So be careful to not get things mixed up. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We are actually going to talk about early European explorers and how they made it to Oklahoma. Now, remember, we talked about the Spanish. They were one of your first early explorers, but actually, they weren't the first. Here's an interesting thing. The Scandinavian Vikings, right around 1000 AD, they started to explore out west. A lot of this, now, here's the thing, they mostly stuck around Europe and like right around Norway. Um, and we see that eventually they started to kind of test the boundaries outside. One of those was Leif Erikson, and so your answer number five obviously is the Vikings, but Leif Erikson is a Viking who set foot to become who became North America, set foot in what we became North America in 1001 AD. He is one of the very first. He actually founded two countries, Iceland, and he founded Greenland. And I understand a lot of people are like, why, why the names? Why the name flips? Well, I think they were trying to attract more people to Greenland, and so they called it Greenland, even though there's a lot more ice, whereas Iceland, it's pretty much mostly green. So, but either way, they established little countries and colonies there. But they didn't stay long in Canada, even though Eastern Canada at that point in time was Vinland. They did start a colony, but eventually over time they got away. But the Vikings may have not discovered Oklahoma. We don't know for sure, but there's some discoveries or of some symbols maybe, but that doesn't mean it's 100%. We do see, though, that Europeans really mostly start to make their way into the Western Hemisphere because of really one thing, the Orient. What we're talking about is Asia, because really, right around the 1400s, we see that Europeans are looking to seek trade with India and China because there's a lot of new goods, a lot of goods that are wanted by some of the people in their countries. So some of the things like silk, perfumes, drugs, gold, jewels, dyes, teas, spices, things like pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves. These were things that they didn't have, and these were very valuable, and people wanted these luxury items, and some of them actually, they wanted them for recipes and things, and they were big-time traders. So we see that Mediterranean ports were established in Venice and Constantinople, but and they were able to make land routes into what is known as the Silk Road, which was a way to get to China, but there really wasn't a way to sail there. And so a lot of these countries really wanted to sail to China and India because, which is your answer number four, to make the goods a lot cheaper. Because here's the idea: it's called supply and demand. You have less in supply with high demand. That means the price is going to go up. When you have more in supply than demand, then that means prices are going to go down. So even though demand is going to be very high, the more supply you have, the cheaper that price gets. And so that helps a lot. And so they're trying to find a way to get through to the Far East. The problem is they don't know about North America and South America. Now, who helped establish this connection? Marco Polo is one of those from Italy. Venice, Italy in 1254, traveled to the Far East at the age of 17. It is there's a story about him and his father getting there, and that they got into some trouble, and he was ultimately left to be kind of as an assistant to the Chinese. Eventually, he worked out the relationship, lasting there for 24 years. When they came back, he wrote about his discovery. And in his book, Travels of Marco Polo were translated in many languages, which helped inspire Christopher Columbus, which is part of your answer number six here. Basically, he was an Italian who actually was living in Spain, and Spain had just taken back their country from the Moors, a Muslim group that had control of Spain. And so basically, Spain had all this money. Their new Christian kingdom had all this money. They were trying to build an empire, and so Christopher Columbus has an idea. I know what we can do to help grow the empire. Let's try to get to the Far East, build a trading connection, and maybe, just maybe, we can make some money. So we see that Christopher Columbus, had estimated the distance from Portugal to Japan at around 3,000 miles. He was wrong. His math was way wrong. It's actually 12,000 miles. But again, this comes at a time when Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Europe were it. Everybody thought this is what's only out there. There's nothing else. But they would be wrong. But on August 3rd of 1492, he sails out on the Nina de Pinta de Santa Maria, which this is your definition, by the way. And October 12th of 1492, he lands on the island near San Salvador, or the Bahama Islands. Now, Christopher Columbus at this point in time is thinking, I have discovered it. I have found India. Pump your brakes, buddy. Which we would find out later on, that is not true. Actually, he did reach the coast, a new coast. He reached the Bahamas, but he runs into a group of natives. He thinks they're the Indians, so he calls them, he thinks he's in India, the coast of India, so that's why he calls them the Indians. And so Christopher Columbus has some success in finding new things. But he is ultimately not successful getting to India. He does make 4 voyages, which is your answer number 1, 4, to the New World, 1492, 1493, 1498, exploring coasts of Central South America, discovering Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and the Virgin Islands. He still thinks he landed in what is China, India. Christopher Columbus could be more wrong. And also, too, the thing about Christopher Columbus, we got to be very careful about giving him too much credit. Yes, he was a part of the Age of Exploration, but you also have to understand the Age of Exploration, even though new things were discovered and it helped expand our world to an extent of understanding, a lot of these explorers that you're going to find out were mistreated a lot of the native people, were very awful to these individuals and enslaved them, killed them, and ultimately what Europe did, that this part wasn't, I mean, it was their fault, but I mean, it's unintentional, but they brought disease, and that ultimately would hurt a lot of civilizations. Some other explorers, 1497, Jean Cabot, landed in Newfoundland, present-day Canada, first European to give credit for reaching the North American mainland. This is your definition for him. Be sure to write these down. If you need to pause this, we can. So pause it to write these down. Vasco da Gama, 20-year-old Portuguese navigator who discovered a sea route to India around Africa, the Cape of Africa, coming around, or under, I should say, under Africa to get to what is now India. And then you also have Magellan, Portuguese explorer who sailed for Spain, responsible for the first expedition to circle the globe. So we see a lot of big efforts by these individuals. They all played a part in society and in the world of Age of Exploration. But again, if you have to pause. If not, we're going to move on, okay? Remember to just, when you see these definitions, start writing as quickly as possible. Okay, so Spain and the New World. We see Spain sent a lot of explorers trying to find the Northwest Passage. Even though Columbus didn't find it, that didn't mean that they didn't think it was out there. So they send more explorers. Ponce de Leon, 1513, landed in what is now Florida. Balboa crossed the isthmus, narrow strip of land connecting 2 larger areas of Panama to reach the Pacific Ocean. And then Hernando Cortez, which is your definition, landed in present-day Mexico, 1521, and conquered the Aztecs, killing their ruler Montezuma and claimed their gold and silver for Spain. And here's the thing about Hernando Cortez. He goes into the Aztecs and he befriends Montezuma and is able to build a relationship and use this against him to figure out, what do they have? Oh, they have this gold here. Ooh, they have these nice little statues here. And he's basically, making inventory. And then he goes, you know what? We're going to take this guy captive. And that's what he does. He marches in after he knows his plan. He goes in, captures Montezuma, kidnaps him. And as they hold him hostage, they're gathering as many treasures as they can with him and his army. And the people are just getting frustrated and upset. They want answers. They thought that these people were their friends. In some ways, depending on the historian, they thought maybe they would have been deities or gods. But Cortez sends out Montezuma to calm the crowd down, but the crowd is so upset that they actually throw stones at Montezuma that it knocks him down and he dies. And eventually Cortez gets out with the gold and silver and eventually comes back and conquers. Panfilio Narvaez, 1527, set out to conquer Rio Grande in Cape Florida, but unsuccessful in his expedition to Cape of Florida. Excuse me. Excuse me there. Pulled the mic away from me, so didn't have to hear that. Francisco Vasquez de Coronado, he discovers 7 cities of Cibola, false reports a house of gold and turquoise, entice Mendoza. Coronado, appointed by Mendoza, led an expedition, 1,000 men, 1,500 horses of cattle, sheep. They were led by a Pawnee Indian captive, El Turco, or the Turk. He basically takes them across parts of New Mexico into Oklahoma, up into Kansas, into the high plains. And basically at some point, Coronado's like, dude, we've been on this trip for a long time. We haven't found anything. What's going on? They talk to Turk, and the Turk says, yeah, there's no gold. I was just basically leading you away from my people. They kill him on the spot. But eventually he discovers more about Oklahoma and discovers the Wichita. Juan de Padilla. Here's your answer number 2 right here. An ordinary priest with Coronado's expedition. His efforts were more missionary based. He wanted to help them with the Native Americans understand the Catholic faith. He and a group were warmly received by the Quivira. The Padilla eventually was ambushed while he was helping these native tribes and killed by the Kaw Indians, which is answer number 2. Padilla's helpers vowed to carry a wooden cross across Oklahoma to the Gulf Coast. See here, we got a definition down here for Juan de Soto, and also part number 7. He led an expedition in 1539, 700 men, over 200 horses, and equipment to explore Florida and other areas of the southeast. We see in 1542 he wintered on the Arkansas River and died that year. His efforts added more land to Spain, north of Mexico. So his efforts were more so just kind of understanding, how can I add more land to my empire, to my country's empire? And that's what he did. So that's your definition and answer number 7. But he also, his other efforts is that he brought diseases. So fun. Here's your definition to Juan de Onate. 1595, he charged with settling New Mexico mainly to spread Catholicism. See, so that was in 1595. In 1598, he established San Juan de los Caballeros, the first Spanish settlement in Nuevo Mexico, which is New Mexico. In 1601, he had more legends of gold, brought Onate to Oklahoma, helped open the door to ultimately some changes to come, and opened the door for many other explorers as well. Now we're going to talk about the French. The French also came in, like I said in the previous chapter, they were not looking for just land. They were also looking for goods, furs, any sort of trade. They bartered for food, for furs. They founded Quebec, which is up in Canada. Their idea was not really to conquer the natives. They were mostly working with Native Americans and trying to befriend them and get help from them. Treated them well. Did seek fable route through the continent. In 1673, Joliet and Marquette expedition down the Mississippi River. We see Sieur de La Salle desired to set up a trading post down the Mississippi River, claimed land drained by the Mississippi River for his king, King Louis XIV, which ultimately we see Louisiana is ultimately called the land of Louis. He was ultimately murdered by frightened and frustrated colonists for unsuccessful things going on. Actually, let me go back to his definition. His claim led to the first colony, eventually exploration of Oklahoma. So there's Sieur de La Salle. La Harpe, Jean-Baptiste Bernard de La Harpe, his definitions right here, established a trading post along the Red River. He explored a lot of eastern Oklahoma, was mostly impressed with the Native American nations and their lifestyle, working with them, impressed by the land and what it offered as far as furs and other trading goods, established trading partners with the Indians and beginning the French trade. Other French explorers, we had the place of importance in Oklahoma in the mid 1700s. Some of those explorers were Pierre Antoine and Paul Mallat and Andre Fabre de la Bure. Um, Early French influence, mostly given names to rivers and certain geographical features, and surnames found in Oklahoma. As for England, they had a part in the role of in sailing in the New World. John Cabot provided England's claim to North America. We see in 1588 Spanish Armada's defeat of England further ensured England's dominance of the New World. Unsuccessful attempts to find the fabled Northwest Passage, and by the end of the 1600s, 12 English colonies along the Atlantic coast, Indian life affected by the Europeans. As far as European Indian contact, archaeological discoveries have proven that many natives were involved in trade networks. We talked a little bit about this in chapter 2. They trade a lot of things: beads, shells, pearl stones, spear and arrow points, traded areas. Many tribal economies changed with the arrival of the European and Spain, France. We see that native tribes traded with other Indians as well to keep certain balances. There was a lot of demand for furs and hides. Europeans' desire for furs and hides. Indians traded for guns and ammunition for protection from other tribes. Horses. The horse was really not implemented into the North America until the Spanish arrived with their horses. They were unique animals. They played a big impact to the Native Americans when they traded for them. They first called them magic dogs or wonder dogs, but they would trade many things for them. Very essential to the native tribes because it totally changed the game for them, because it took days on hunts, but sometimes it may take only a day or two on a certain hunt to get to one place to hunt their animals, or sometimes for transportation to get to one place to another. So it totally changed the game and everything. Other animals were brought to North America. You had used by Native Americans: pigs, chickens, goats, sheep. Turkey actually was in North America. The Europeans did not bring that. Here's your answer number 10 and your answer number 11. Some things that were found in old North America or brought into the New World, or found in the New World: corn or maize, beans, potatoes, squash, pumpkins, cocoa, tomatoes, bell peppers, peanuts, passion fruit, sunflowers, and 50 varieties of berries. So that's your answer number 10 right here. You don't have to write all of them down, just write a few if you can. And then the Europeans brought plants from Old World to the New World. Some of the things that was not found in North America that ultimately was brought by the Europeans is coffee, peaches, wheat, radishes, beets, and sugarcane. So those things were brought as well. Indians for thousands of years grew and chewed smoking tobacco and smoked tobacco and became a major export to Europe. Another export was disease. Europeans brought diseases. Yes, they brought a lot of them. So it was number 8. It's the Indians, which was the main decline of number of Native Americans in this country. Sadly, a lot of them, Native Americans, were put into slavery, but what really killed them was not slavery, it was disease. And I don't think the Europeans knew that they were transmitting or spreading disease, but a lot of these Native Americans were not immune to some of these things. In Mexico, as many as 9 million out of 10 million died. A lot of Native tribes were eliminated because of disease. Smallpox is the deadliest to all natives. Immunity was too late to rebuild the Indian population at this point, and very difficult for them. So very sad and unfortunate that this occurred in their society. So, but that's going to do it for this chapter. We are done, and we will move on to getting closer to taking your tests, and then a little bit later on, we'll have chapter 4 and chapter 5 together. So, good job. See you later, guys.